So basically no one is talking about the new pickleball rule changes for 2025, so I wanted to make a quick video for you guys so that instead of having to go read the confusing rules, you could hear it in video form, and then I can explain it to you guys so that you understand it and you know what to look forward to for the year of 2025. So here are the 8 most interesting rule changes that you need to know for this upcoming year. Let's open the playbook. So the first rule that we're going to talk about are line calls, and line calls are only allowed to be made by the players or the referees on the court, so not the people that are up in the stands. And the reason that they had to change this rule is because of one specific word. So the way that it was written in 2024 is that spectators should not be consulted on any line call, but that should has been changed to shall. That way it's definite, and so nobody can kind of sneak around it by saying, well, it says that you should, but I still am going to. So they just simply changed that rule. I personally like this because I think that it alleviates a ton of contention that could happen, because I've been at so many matches, including pro matches, where the players will ask people, was that shot in? Or someone will shout out from the crowd, out or in? And it causes a tussle between the players, the referee, and the people in the stands. So overall, great rule change, but let me know what you think in the comments below. Rule number 2 is line call appeals. So simply, if you think that a ball was in and your opponent's called it out, you can appeal that shot, but you have to do it at a certain time. So the way that the new rule is written is it says, only rally ending line calls may be appealed. Any player may appeal a rally ending line call to the referee before the next serve occurs. But then they add on further clarification to this by saying a match ending line call appeal must be requested before the score sheet is initialed. So this one's a little tricky, but I can't understand why you'd need longer than, I don't know, it's probably going to take 30 seconds for them to go over there and initial. Why you'd need longer than that to appeal the shot that happened 30 seconds ago. So in my opinion, a great clarification on the rule that was already there. Rule number 3 has to do with telling your opponents or the referee that you're not ready for the score to be called, so you're not ready to return that ball. As interesting as it is, in 2024, it wasn't recognized if you said stop or wait. You had to physically put your arm up so that they wouldn't serve the ball or the referee wouldn't call the score. But now they've slightly changed that rule and modified it by saying verbal indicators to stop play such as stop and wait will be recognized. So I'm not sure why this wasn't implemented before, but kind of interesting that they're implementing it now, and I think that it's another great rule change. Let me know what you think about this one in the comments below. Rule number 4 has to do with round robin tournaments. So a lot of the time, if you're in a round robin, there can be a 4-way tie, a 3-way tie, or a 2-way tie, or even more. Sometimes there's a 5-way tie in that round robin. And so all 5 teams or 4 teams will have 3 wins and 1 loss. And so they'll all be tied for first. So in order to further explain that, I'm just gonna read what they specifically said. This will return the rule to the tiebreaker method that was used in 2023 and earlier. Neither round robin tiebreaker option is perfect when there are 3 or more teams with the same number of wins. Both have an aspect that can be argued as unfair. Under this method, there will always be 1 or more teams who could claim unfairness when they finish lower than a team they beat head-to-head, but who had a better point differential. However, the nature of a round robin is based on playing all other teams in the bracket. So using point differential throughout is a more consistent and appropriate measure of who performed better overall in the bracket. So in other words, they're not going to go head-to-head at the end. It's going to come down to point differential, because even if you beat the team that got first place, if they lost to you by 2 points, but then they beat the team that beat you by 4 points, they're going to end up getting first even though you beat them in the head-to-head. So either way, this is going to upset some players in tournaments, and then others are going to be happy that they came out on top. But I think that this is as good as it can get for now. Rule number 5 has to do with calling faults, and specifically calling faults on your opponent in a non-officiated match. So meaning that there's no referee there, it's just you versus your opponents. I remember one of the very first tournaments, if not the first tournament that I ever played in, my opponent called a foot fault on me while I was playing at the non-volley zone line. He was saying I stepped into the kitchen. I didn't think I did, but he ended up taking the point, and I really didn't have any say in it. So they specifically say that for non-officiated matches, if a player believes an opponent has committed any type of fault other than a service or non-volley zone foot fault, they may mention the specific fault to the opponents upon completion of the rally, but they have no authority to enforce the fault. The final decision on the fault resolution belongs to the player that allegedly committed the fault. It should ultimately be up to the player who supposedly committed the fault to decide if they did, as long as the match isn't being refereed by a referee that's watching those specific faults. All right, rule number 6 is another funny one, but it's preventing a paddle from dominating the sport. So this doesn't really make any sense to me. So they specifically state that they want to preserve the unique features and rules of the sport involving non-volley zone and the 2-bounce rule, and prevent one shot, one paddle, or type of play from dominating the sport. that's really all the clarification that they give us. So though I absolutely agree that not one paddle should be used to dominate the sport, okay? It doesn't have too much power and stuff like that, but they don't have any specific amount of power that that paddle can have. So them writing this rule just doesn't make any sense to me. It's as if a parent is asking their child to not ride fast bikes without clarifying what the fast bikes are that they can't ride. I know that's not the best analogy, but you get what I'm saying. They just don't clarify the rule well enough for you to know what paddle is going to absolutely dominate the sport, because I think that there's already over 100 out there that are way too hard hitting. So hopefully there comes some further clarification in 2026 or sometime throughout 2025. So hopefully some of these changes can be made so that we can preserve the unique features of this sport moving forward. Rule number 7 has to do with getting signatures on your paddle, and specifically getting pro signatures. So if you go to a pro camp or you go to a tournament and you get a signature on your new $280 paddle, they want to make sure that you know that you can play with that paddle. Before, if you had a signature on the paddle, they would not let you play. And that's because they felt like it would mess with the actual grit of the paddle in some way, make it so that you're getting more spin on your paddle, or maybe you're getting less spin and somehow that's going to help you. But I think that this was nice that this rule was further clarified so that you can have those pro signatures on there. Obviously, this is a small amount of people that are going to get those signatures, but it's nice for these people to know that you can use that in a tournament, and that way when they show up to a tournament, they're not going to be instantly turned off from pickleball and never play in a sanctioned tournament again, just simply because they had a signature on their paddle. Rule number 8 has to do with net posts. I just thought this one was interesting. It's not really a life-changing rule, but they had it written where net posts have to be 22 feet apart, okay, and then they have the net in between. And then it was plus or minus 0 inches. They've changed that to 1 inch. So I know that's not totally pivotal, but I thought it was interesting. So it's obviously not gonna make a noticeable difference having that extra inch, but yeah, I did think that that rule was kind of interesting. In this specific rule, they have something written that's not grammatically correct. And I also saw other rules that aren't grammatically correct. And I feel like if this is your job to write the rule book, I think that it should be overseen by multiple people and have multiple edits, so that it's written correctly so that we can actually understand it. But they specifically say, for the reasons stated in the proposal, this resolves an inconsistency between the rule. I mean, I can't even read it because it doesn't make sense. So I feel like this is why so many of these rules need to be shown in video forms, just so that you guys can understand what they're trying to say, because for some reason they're not writing it correctly. You also need to have people coming in and editing these rules. So this is a specific message to you out there that create the rules and approve these rules. Make sure that they're written correctly so that people actually understand them. I feel like this is a big problem in pickleball, where so many people are just confused about the rules, because pickleball has some unique rules that a lot of people don't understand. So that said, those are the new rule changes for 2025. Let me know which ones you thought were interesting, which ones you disagree with in the comments below. Let's start a discussion, see what we can figure out. And check out this video right here if you want to learn about the PPA serve rules that they've implemented this last year that only apply to the PPA.